Oyez, oyez, oyez. District Sentinel Radio is now in session. I'm Sam Sachs.
I'm Sam Knight.
This is that newscast of record for the left, broadcasting out of the Sentinel Fort in Washington, D.C. Check out our website, districtsentinel.com.
Folks, get your garbage can nominees in.
Yes.
Voting is open. A lot of good ones already. We have the Wall Street Journal for openly saying that fascism is good in Brazil.
Ugh.
We've got Jonathan Chait.
We've been distressing for a week about fascists taking power in Brazil, and then we turn to the Wall Street Journal and they're endorsing him.
That was really in our face, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We also have Jonathan Chait, as I mentioned.
Yeah, people nominated Jonathan Chait.
People nominated him for a piece today, I guess, about socialism, which evidently is, again, represented by Chapo Trap House.
He's still just mad at Chapo.
He is. There were other people mentioned in the article, too. The point is the article was bad. Jonathan Chait is bad.
The point is get your dang garbage can nominees in.
True. Sort of ranting here.
MBS.
Mohammed bin Salman for the whole, probably dismantling a dissident journalist thing, which is particularly grim.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Also, all the I guess there's something like 100 companies that are responsible for most of the carbon emissions. The CEOs of all those companies have been nominated. Don't worry, we have a fairly large garbage can. We can accommodate all of that.
A little reluctant to nominate Chait because within his article, as I noted on Twitter, there was unintentionally a great review of Matt Christman, an anecdote that he said he told in the book about finding out that a extremely conservative coworker had died and just cleaning his shit out and moving on with his life and eating his candy and just feeling it was pretty good.
Chait was pretty aggrieved by that. Let's check in on the White House today. Kid Rock and Kanye West made an appearance at the White House. Possible preview of the GOP's 2024 presidential ticket. Not sure who would be at the top of the ticket. Probably Kanye at this point. I think we've got video here of there's Kid Rock walking in to the White House here. But the person who really stole the show today was this guy, Kanye West.
Wrap people around. So there's theories that there's infinite amounts of universe and there's alternate universe. So it's very important for me to get Hoover out because in an alternate universe, I am him. It was something about when I put this hat on, it made me feel like Superman. You made a Superman. That's my favorite superhero. And you made a Superman cape.
It's just some of the action from today.
I think my favorite part, which I guess that there was too much to clip to really capture that whole thing. But
Kanye went on about a 15-minute rant in the Oval Office, touching on a whole number of things.
The best thing was the hydrogen plane.
Yeah,
he's like, the president needs a hydrogen plane. He needs the dopest shit, including a hydrogen plane.
Kanye showed the entire world what his iPhone passcode was, just 6 zeros. Yeah, so I hadn't
not
realized
doing well,
this.
Kanye. I don't think he's doing well.
No, probably shouldn't make too much light of that. This guy seems to be
Trump
in a bit
should
of a
not
downturn,
be.
but
The very public nature of this meeting was extraordinarily weird.
One thing I hadn't noticed, and it's so obvious when you put them in the room together, but I've heard Kanye give interviews for years and seen him go off on his rants, but I never realized how similar he and Trump talk.
Yeah.
Like how they constantly insert themselves and hype themselves up and then go off on all these tangents and kind of struggle through sentences. They talk very similarly.
It is pretty. It's a thing. It's a thing for sure.
All right. We've got a bunch of news to get to. We got some haikus coming up a little later in the show. But first, it's Thursday, October 11th, 2018. Here's the news.
Now that the Senate Judiciary Committee is done with the Kavanaugh nomination, it can get back to the important business of approving unqualified nominees to lifetime appointments. That's what it did today. The committee approved of 9 judicial nominees, including 2 that received unqualified ratings from the American Bar Association, or the ABA.
Seems like a kind of a minimum that you kind of need to have.
Of the 2, yeah, and by the way, they during the Kavanaugh confirmation hearings, conservatives would say, well, the ABA says he's very qualified, he's highly qualified. Now that, of course,
the ABA, at the end
matter.
of the process, the ABA then called for like a slowdown of the whole process.
Right.
And said they need to.
Right, exactly. Well, we'll get to right-wing takes on the ABA shortly, but of the 2 unqualified judges, Jonathan Kobus is particularly worth mentioning. Kobus will serve, if confirmed, on an appellate circuit, meaning he will be among judges who have the final say on numerous cases that make their way through the federal court system. Democrats on the Judiciary Committee criticized the Kobus nomination. Mazie Hirono pointed out that Kobus is an anti-abortion hack. His career experience consists of corporate law and serving as...
Is that her quote?
Well, no, not a direct quote. Thank you for pointing that out. His career experience consists of corporate law and serving as a staffer for a Republican senator from South Dakota, Mike Rounds. Here was Dianne Feinstein on the ABA's take on Kobus's qualifications.
Simply put, the ABA had trouble finding enough in his record to make a thorough evaluation. They found none of his writings were, quote, reflective of complex legal analysis, knowledge of the law, excuse me, or ability to write about complex matters in a clear and cogent manner, end quote. This should really be concerning to all of us.
I'd say.
Owning the libs by giving a lifetime intermediate court appointment to a guy who can't write an essay. If Mitch McConnell does bring Kobus to a full floor vote, and why would he expect him not to after the Kavanaugh disaster, we can expect Republicans to attack the ABA itself. Chuck Grassley said today the organization is being motivated by politics and that Kobus couldn't submit his work for review because it was confidential in-house counsel, because no one applying for a lifetime job on a circuit court should be expected to do a supplemental writing sample if they can't publicly demonstrate their legal competence, apparently. This is a job application. Like, I'm not trying to be too technocratic about this, but everyone has to fill out, do writing samples for job applications. Why should this be any different?
Look, people are Shakespeare until proven otherwise, okay? Shakespeare until proven otherwise.
Also, here is another problem with the entire ABA, according to Grassley, retweets by a single ABA examiner.
She has retweeted tweets mocking Justice Scalia, an originalist interpretation of the Constitution.
First of all, originalism is bullshit. Second of all, mustn't mock Scalia. But
third of all, Chuck Grassley shouldn't be talking about like who can tweet and who can't tweet and what they can tweet about.
As someone, yeah, good point. As the you know what at the Dairy Queen and killing deer and shit, and his incomprehensible documentation of his 99 county tours of Iowa, where he's like, oh, what did people bring up? North America superhighway, QAnon, all this shit. But by the way, I as someone who endlessly gloated when Scalia died on Twitter, I am curious that they're trying to do something here. What Grassley said, they're trying to discredit legal analysis from anyone who laughed online at Scalia collapsing in a plate of linguine in his own piss.
Are you removing your name from future consideration for courtships? Yeah.
I guess. Well, I'm suspending my exploratory committee, at least for now. Just
to wind this up, I'm just a little disappointed that Democrats are allowing any business whatsoever to be conducted on the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Yep.
After what happened with Kavanaugh. They should just not show up anymore.
Probably. Yeah.
Shut it down. Shut it down. I mean, the midterms are coming up anyways. It's not like much shit should get done.
At least until the midterms, they should, or at least till the next Congress, just be like, you know what, we're done. We're done till January.
Yeah.
SJC closed.
All right, moving on. The Department of Homeland Security is at it again, wrecking the environment to enforce its authoritarian anti-immigration regime. On Wednesday, DHS announced it was waiving more than 24 environmental regulations as it constructs portions of a southern border wall right through a frickin' wildlife refuge. The new barriers will fill gaps in already constructed border wall running in southern Texas alongside the lower Rio Grande National Wildlife Refuge. Environmental groups told Courthouse News that building on federal land is the point, like a wildlife refuge, because it's much easier for the government than getting into protracted eminent domain legal fights. Waiving environmental regulations while building or renovating the border wall is becoming a regular practice by the department, despite warnings about the environmental damage that could be caused by construction. The department cites national security concerns that necessitate rapid, lawless construction. And while that sounds like bullshit to you and me, it's so far been upheld in the courts. Among the laws that will just be disregarded during construction, the Safe Drinking Water Act, the Endangered Species Act, the Migratory Birds Conservation Act, and literally 25 other environmental regulations. All right, we're going to take a quick break now to read some poetry. All new subscribers on the old Patreon get a haiku written by the two Sams. Let's read a few right now. This first one goes out to Nick. We have never met, but I already feel that big Nick energy.
Thank you, Nick. This is for Madison. Gonna get some friends. We're gonna release Panthers over at Congress.
Thank you, Madison. This one's for Frack. When the animals line up for roll call each day, aardvarks always first.
Thank you, Frack. This is for Graham. Forks, a tradition, but what if we went forward? Sporks in every home.
Interesting idea. Thank you, Graham. This one is for Bradford. Let's hold a seance, light candles, dust off Ouija, call up all the ghosts.
Thank you, Bradford. And finally, this is for Scott. Morning dew emerge. The birds sing their approval. They chant, do the do.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you to all the new subscribers on Patreon. It's patreon.com/District Sentinel. All right, moving right along here. So far, the Trump administration isn't signaling any tough actions or pressing curiosity over the alleged murder of Saudi dissident and Washington Post contributor Jamal Khashoggi. Trump said Thursday morning that he wouldn't consider cutting off arms sales to the Saudis, even if all this is true. You can expect a similarly weak response to another U.S. ally acting like authoritarians, the Israelis. A U.S. student has been detained in Israel's Ben Gurion airport, not allowed to enter the country. Why? Well, because 22-year-old Laura Al-Qassem is an organizer in the BDS movement, which supports boycott, divestments, and sanctions against Israel over its repressive treatment of Palestinians. Al-Qassem arrived in the country to study abroad as part of a program with the University of Florida. She's been ordered to renounce BDS or leave the freaking country. Meanwhile, in more news showing what a backward fucking country Israel is, 3 BDS activists living in New Zealand have just been ordered by an Israeli court to pay $12,000 in damages stemming from the BDS movement pressuring pop singer Lorde into canceling her stupid concert in Tel Aviv. The suit was brought by 3 fans of Lorde who were, quote, seriously disappointed by the cancellation of the show. They argued that under a 2011 anti-boycott law, which allows anyone who calls for a boycott of Israel to be sued for damage, totally normal fucking country here. I'm wondering how you calculate the disappointment from not being able to go
To a Lorde
to a
concert.
Lorde concert. How they arrive at $12,000.
We need some of our legal friends to chime in there. Seriously, I wonder if lobbyists for apartheid South Africa back in the 80s regret like not going to Congress and saying their opponents want to destroy South Africa.
Yeah.
Today, the Senate Banking Committee featured testimony from one of the few mainstream economists who warned the public about the 2008 crash before it happened. Nouriel Roubini was asked to testify on cryptocurrency. Here's some of his opening statement.
First, crypto is the mother or father of all scams and bubbles, a bubble that has finally gone bust this year. Second, blockchain is the most overhyped technology ever and is no better than a glorified database. Let me elaborate on these points. First, a recent study shows that 81% of all ICOs were scams to begin with, 11% of them have been failing or are dead, and only 8% are still traded on exchanges. Second, after a massive bubble in 2017, Bitcoin has fallen by 70% this year. Other major cryptocurrencies have fallen by 80%, and thousands of other ones have fallen by 95%. This entire asset class is literally imploding now.
So, Dr. Roubini, the world-renowned expert on financial crises, not so big
I'd say,
on
yeah,
cryptocurrency.
I'd say so. He wasn't really into it.
Since a little bit, there may be some subtle criticism there in his testimony. Not really a huge surprise there. More interestingly, Roubini was asked to give his outlook on the economy as a whole by Chris Van Hollen, the Democrat from Maryland. Dr. Doom, as Roubini is known, has predicted the year when things will next go south at the latest, and here he was giving that forecast to the committee.
Well, in brief, I would say this year growth is going to be, because of the stimulus, close to 3%. It's going to be less than 3% next year. My concerns are about 2020. One, because we'll have a fiscal cliff. Secondly, because the Fed, rightly, with an overheating economy, has to gradually increase interest rates. Short rates are going to go higher, long rates are going to go higher, the dollar is going to strengthen, credit spreads are going to widen. That tightening of financial condition is going to slow economic growth. I'm worried about protectionism and trade wars slowing down economic growth. And I'm also worried about other stagflationary policies like restricting migration, restricting capital inflows and outflows and FDI, restricting investment in the environment and not having an infrastructure plan, reducing growth and increasing inflation. We also know that asset prices are frothy, and if there's a shock to growth, there could be a significant correction. So those combination of factors may lead to a stall of economic growth by 2020.
So there you have it. According to Roubini, who again is an expert on financial crises, you can expect the economy to go to shit by the year of our next scheduled presidential election, in case you were wondering how hell world could go from bad to worse. 2020 is going to whip.
Yes, it will. Finally, file this under LMAO. The most expensive weapons system in world history, the F-35, is now grounded. Not some of the planes, not a certain model. All F-35s grounded. The nearly 250 of them in the United States and the rest of the planes in use by allied nations, all of them grounded. It's the latest setback in the ongoing development and production of the F-35, estimated when it's all done to cost $1.5 trillion. That'll probably tick up a little higher now due to the grounding. That's because officials believe the plane might have a faulty engine part, one that was responsible for a crash last month in South Carolina. The F-35 had its first combat mission last month, striking targets in Afghanistan. Comes more than 10 years after the plane had its first flight and a few weeks before the plane has now been grounded.
I guess it wasn't raining in Afghanistan on the day that it carried out its combat mission.
Yeah, I guess not.
It's like, oh, there's good weather for the next week. We got to get it out there. We got to get it out there. We got to use this thing before the fucking clouds come.
Yeah, here are a few cool pictures of the F-35 flying around here. Notice.
What a piece of shit. You know, I saw an article from 2016. I tweeted it out today. If we took all the money that we've spent on the F-35, we could pay off everyone's college debt and 20% of the credit card debt out there.
Jesus. I was just saying, though,
Amazing.
You're right. I mean, looking at all these pictures, no rain anywhere to be seen. Find me a picture of the F-35 flying in the rain and send it to me. Prove it to us. Prove it to us. All right, that's the show, folks. What's going on in the chat room? There's no messages to get to.
There, the chat. Alex commenting on Rubini's testimony says frothy about the stocks. Patrick says, "Hey Sam Fam, Alex Jonestown Massacre is playing 2 DC shows, The Pinch on October 18th and Velvet Lounge on October 28th. So if we want to claim our band shirts, we can go."
Cool. Maybe we should go.
And yeah, people should go. I had fun when they played in Richmond. It was good.
I did too.
It's good times. Gregory says about Rubini, "I smell an envious crypto short seller." Bobby says unbridled Israeli arrogance over the detained student. I agree. Let's see what else. Where's Big Daddy Turtle? Mark says
he'll call back.
He'll call back. And Luke commenting on the picture of Kobus, the appellate circuit nominee. He says Kobus looks like he nutted in that pic that we used.
Ooh.
Let's just in there.
Let's do that. Thanks for supporting the Sentinel. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Call the rant line 202-684-6108. Sponsors include the Congressional Dish podcast hosted by Jen Briney. Find it at congressionaldish.com. Another sponsor, levelnews.org. The Newscast is back next week. Stay tuned for the Sentinel cast tomorrow, featuring friends of the show, Owen Higgins and Paul Blest. Should be a fun one. It's coming out tomorrow for all you subscribers. We're here in DC, so you don't have to be.